Welcome back. The Jacob Zuma Foundation has welcomed the release of the former president on medical parole because of ill health. Spokesperson Mzwanele Manyi says this is a sign of humanity from the state. Manyi says they are relieved.
This is a most welcome development. It's a sigh of relief. It just shows that there is humaneness in the system, but it also means that the condition that President Zuma is in medically is a lot more serious, actually, than most of us would have made it out to be. But we really welcome this development, and the lawyers have been contacted, and they are studying the conditions and all of that. A much more well-considered statement will be issued in due course. But for now, these are good news that we must all welcome. We haven't spoken to President Zuma yet. Obviously, we're going to have to make all kinds of means now to make the contact. But as things stand, no, we haven't spoken to him. But the lawyers have spoken. I'm sure he would be very delighted to hear that this is going to be the situation. But indeed, he still continues in hospital now. We're not sure when he's going to leave the hospital to his house because he's still under that day observation.
DA Leader John Steenhuisen says they will call the National Commissioner of Correctional Services, Fraser, to answer on his department's decision to release former President Jacob Zuma on medical parole. Steenhuisen says the decision is more political than based on medical reasoning.
It has raised significant suspicions that this is a political rather than a medical decision that has been made. We must be honest about these situations. You don't claim medical parole then. The president should have had the backbone to offer a presidential pardon rather than going through the charade like we saw with Mr. Shabir Sheikh, who is still fit and well today, but who was given medical parole many years ago when it was very clear that there was no real case to be made. And it's precisely because of that the laws were tightened, and it appears that they've not been applied in this particular case, and that instead Mr. Fraser has made a decision not in the best interest of justice in South Africa or his Correctional Services division, but made a decision in the best interest of Mr. Jacob Zuma.
Joining us now via Zoom is political analyst Sandile Swana. Mr. Swana, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us, and a warm welcome to the Globe.
Oh, thank you so much. Good evening.
Are you at all surprised? I mean, people have been linking this medical parole to that of Shabir Sheikh, who was reportedly living his best life.
Yes, I think most of us are not surprised by the latest development. And I think on the political chessboard, the African National Congress and Jacob Zuma have played it well for themselves. I am thinking that now that Jacob Zuma is also facing the arms deal trial, if he were to be sentenced whilst he's still on medical parole, that would have to be factored in as well. So I think on the political chessboard, they've played it quite well.
Yeah, and speaking of political chessboard, the Democratic Alliance says the decision to grant him medical parole is more medical, or rather is more political than based on medical grounds. Do you agree?
Yes, I think all of us know that Jacob Zuma could have gone to prison probably around 2006 and 2007, around that time when Thabo Mbeki fired him and he was being charged for the arms deal. And it was the political party under the leadership of Secretary General at the time, Halima Muntlande, who took serious political steps to destabilize the security cluster of the state and extricate Zuma from certain imprisonment, of which he is still facing till today. So Zuma has been protected politically for some time, so this is not surprising at all. It's part of a long ongoing process. But at the same time, we've got to be aware that there are many political forces in the country that support Zuma, and maybe we might get into that later.
You know, Mr. Swana, just a short while ago, I spoke to a legal analyst about the possibility of him being rearrested. Because remember, there was a court order delivered by Judge Piet Koen saying that Zuma needs to be assessed by a medical practitioner that has been appointed by the state. And Zuma has flatly refused to be assessed by such a medical practitioner, opting to use his own medical team under the military medical team. So if the court does indeed enforce that particular order and insists that Zuma must be examined by a state-appointed medical practitioner, and then that particular doctor finds that Zuma's medical parole was not warranted. I mean, his medical condition does not warrant a medical parole. What do you think will happen after that? Will Zuma be taken back to prison, and what would be the political implications of that?
I have serious doubt that Zuma will allow that. Zuma is a very astute strategist and tactician. I think what we are going to find is that in as much as he may be seriously ill, but he may not be too ill to attend limited periods of time for trial, so that he does not subject himself to another independent medical examination. That would compromise his team and other people who've assisted him to get to this point so far. I don't think Zuma will do that.
I suppose whatever move that Zuma makes, it is a test of his political influence and prowess. So what do you make of his influence at this particular point? And I mean, with these developments, does it mean that he still has a political clout?
I think that Zuma has political clout on the one hand, and this political clout is multifaceted. Number one is that there are many things that Zuma is implicated in that also implicate a number of elders of the African National Congress across the factions. So being reckless with Zuma could compromise a number of senior ANC members, so that is not going to be allowed. Secondly, in general, among the supporters of the African Congress and the black community in general, there is a message that Zuma sent out which resonates with the experience of black people, that the economy of the new South Africa has not delivered much to the black community, and inequality probably has worsened in this period of democracy and independence in South Africa. And so people see Zuma as some kind of economic freedom fighter of some sort who is under attack from white monopoly capital. And all of this harassment that is going under is actually orchestrated by white monopoly capital. So there is that view as well. So Zuma is able to summon popular support in the black communities across the board.
You're raising a very pertinent and thought-provoking point there, Mr. Swana. I mean, there is no way that we can be naive and not view this through a political lens. You're saying that, Zuma has been known to be a freedom fighter and an economic freedom fighter. Would this be viewed under the lens of, a victory, perhaps, of a black man? Because now it's now escalating between a racial war. So is this perhaps a victory of a black man?
It is, look, I think first of all, I think a lot of people accept that Zuma is now old, he needs to retire. Whether you're listening to the likes of Olomisa, you listen to the likes of Hlengwa of the IFP, and then various other parties from the ANC itself. I think people are basically saying that the arresting of Zuma and imprisonment of Zuma, etc., is irrelevant. What is definitely relevant is that the issues of inequality and the correction of joblessness and other things that impact on people, as well as maybe renewing the African National Congress to be a party that is respected for competency, which has been muddied quite a lot in recent years. And also, if Olomisa is to be listened to, that the people who are younger people who are fit for prison, who need to be imprisoned, need to be done that. So the victory here is also for revolutionary morality, in the sense that there are people who sincerely believe that Zuma did not steal money for his personal benefit as such. There are those who believe that he was doing what he did for the benefit of the ANC, and a lot of the money that he was manipulating went into the African National Congress and many cadres. Although there may be others, like Philip Dexter, who felt that at a certain point Zuma was monopolizing economic opportunities for his own family.
And where is the ANC in the mix of things? The fact that they are quiet, should we read into that?
No, the release of President Jacob Zuma is a doing of the African National Congress. In the same way that when after Thabo Mbeki had actually fired him, the ANC itself as an institution actually physically extricated Zuma from the claws of justice. Once again, the African National Congress is exercising its political power, its mighty political power, to extricate Zuma from the claws of justice. And that is being done because in a lot of the transactions that Zuma is implicated in, the African National Congress itself as an organization is implicated. Number two, a lot of elders in the African National Congress, very senior people, are also implicated in the very same things that Zuma is being chased down for.
All right, Mr. Sandile Swana, lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much for your analysis on this matter.
Thank you.